Hello and welcome, I'm Saffron from saffrondomenezes.com, and this is the final video in our parenting month. Although it is no longer July, I've decided to carry it on for a fifth week because this topic feels like one of the most prevalent and one of the most important to talk about in terms of parenting, and we're talking about guilt. I mentioned in the blog that when shortly after my first baby was born, a colleague of mine said that the new baby cards that you get should say "Welcome to your lifetime of guilt," and at the time I thought, well, that's just ridiculous, and as time went on I began to feel that more and more. It is really intense having a new baby, it's really intense bringing up children, and you don't always do things the way that you would like to have, and especially if you've got certain ideals. If you had an idea of how you were going to do it from the beginning, you can feel really guilty if that doesn't happen. If you've read books that have given you these ideas, or if you wanted to bring your kids up just the way that you were brought up and that doesn't happen, or if more likely if your memory of that is different from the reality, because none of us do it perfectly, and it can lead us to feel really guilty because we think that each little thing that happens, each little decision that we make, each meal that we make for our child, each word that we say to them is going to have this huge impact on their entire future. It's going to shape who they become, and it's going to really have the potential to mess things up for them, or to make things amazing for them, depending on what we do. And that's not necessarily the case. I think consistently, if we consistently do something, then it can have an impact, positive or negative. But if we have a day where we haven't done what we wanted to do, it's almost ridiculous to think that this is going to have some huge impact, and it doesn't stop us feeling the guilt. If we've had a really fraught day and we've turned around and shouted at our child, or if we've had a really busy day and we've cooked them something that we don't want them to have, like processed food and oven chips, we can feel really bad about it, and it's just about cutting ourselves some slack, I think. So I will stop rambling on about that now, and we can start doing some tapping about it. So if you are a parent, if you take a minute to think of something that you feel guilty about, and I'm sure it won't even take you that long, just connect in to something that you have done, whether it's recently or today, or whether it's in the dim and distant past. Something that you've done that you really wish that you would have done differently. Just take a moment to connect to that and to feel how you feel about it. And sometimes it can be difficult for us to connect into those guilty feelings, so it might be that during this first round that the guilt increases, because the tapping has the potential to connect us into the emotions more strongly if we aren't fully connected with them to begin with. So if that does happen for you, I would say keep tapping. Just keep tapping until the guilt begins to drop again. So let's begin. So even though I feel really guilty about what I did that time, that's okay. I love and accept myself in spite of what happened. Even though I haven't always done things the way I wanted to, and I'm feeling quite a lot of guilt about that, that's okay. I accept that I'm feeling that way, and I deeply and completely love and accept myself. Even though I'm feeling really guilty about certain things that have happened in my child's life, whether I was responsible for them or not. That's okay. I accept that I'm feeling this guilt, and I deeply and completely love and accept myself. I feel really guilty when I think about the things that happened. I wish I'd done things differently. I wish I'd been a better parent. And I feel a lot of guilt about how things happened. I wonder about how it will affect my child. What impact that's had on their lives. I feel really, really guilty. I know that I could have done better. I know that things could have been better for my child. And it's really hard to let go of that. But maybe I could start to consider that I did the best that I could at the time. Maybe I have more knowledge now. Maybe I have more headspace now. Or a better emotional landscape. But at the time, I did the best that I could. I feel so much guilt about the way things happened. But I was trying my best. And I always loved my kids. Just as I love them now. Maybe I could begin to let go of this guilt. Maybe that would benefit my kids as well. And maybe it could bring us closer. And take a deep breath. Oh, how did that feel? Do you feel like you could let go of the guilt? Does it feel important to hold on to it? Neither of those are the wrong answer. If it feels important to hold on to it, then do some more tapping. Find out why it feels important. Do you feel that if you let go of the guilt, you might make the same mistakes again? Do you feel that if you let go of the guilt, it might mean that you don't care, that you don't want positive things for your child? The more that we tap, the more that we can work out what these answers are. And sometimes we can see immediately that the things that our subconscious minds have been holding on to don't really make a lot of sense once we bring them into consciousness. And sometimes we need to do further tapping to get rid of the guilt and to let go of the guilt. But once we stop the guilt from being a barrier in between us and our children, then our relationship can develop in a much more positive way. I held on to guilt about, I've mentioned elsewhere that my parenting approach changed quite drastically in between having my son and having my daughter. I think it was in the blog that I mentioned this. And I had a lot of guilt around how I brought my son up when he was very small, and the parenting decisions that I made then, although I was doing the best that I could at the time, and there's nothing that would be considered wrong by the vast majority of people. And I carried that guilt for a long time, and once I tapped on it, and once I managed to let go of it and work through it over time, it wasn't just a quick round of tapping like we've done now, it was an over time thing to go through the layers and figure out what was inside that guilt and let go of it all. And obviously not all of it, because all of these things are in layers, and we do sometimes have them come back up even when we think that they're gone. But once the bulk of that work was done, once the majority of that was worked through, my relationship with my son improved drastically because I didn't look at him and feel guilty. I was able to look at him and see him and interact with him and not think, oh no, everything that's bad that's happening, everything he's doing that I wish that he wasn't doing, every emotion that he's having that feels less than positive, that's all because of what I did when he was little, and I don't have those thoughts anymore now. So the EFT can really, really help with that. It can be a really positive influence, so I would definitely encourage you to keep going with it if you are feeling parenting guilt, and to see if you can work through that and how much of that you can let go of, and it can really be beneficial to both you and your children. So please do let me know how you get on with that. If you have any requests for me to go into anything deeper, or if you want to do some tapping on anything different, then do let me know, and I can always incorporate it into these videos or into the live videos on a Thursday evening. I look forward to hearing from you soon. Bye bye.